guess that's it for the stragglers, so we'll get started. My name is Tess, Felton. What I am talking to all of you about today is content planning, and what it is, how you do it, why you do it, when you do it, and then what the outcome of your content planning should be if you kind of go through this whole process, and really kind of take the time that it takes to plan out your websites before you do anything. So before you're writing them, before you're designing them, all of this planning should happen before any of those other pieces are happening. So I'll walk you through kind of exactly what that looks like and what that process can be. My goals for today, there are three of them. The first one, convince you that content planning matters for your websites. It's a step that a lot of people skip, or a lot of people race through, and you shouldn't do that. You're doing your website or websites a big disservice by not taking the time to do content planning. My next goal is to share my process with you. So this is the process that I use, whether a website is big or small. Small being less than 10 pages, big being anything bigger than 50 pages. Obviously, websites can be much, much larger than 50 pages. This process works for that as well. But for this group, it feels like we're probably mostly dealing with websites on the smaller end of the internet spectrum. I'm good. And my last goal is to give you actual concrete steps that you can take to improve your website content planning. So those are the three goals. We're kind of going to go through them one at a time. The third one is going to take the longest. This first one's a little quick. So goal number one, into the website content planning matters. Why does it matter? Websites are very unique. Unlike any other type of writing that you do, websites really have a lot that go into them. They kind of simultaneously, you need each page to stand on its own, but you also need each page to work with all the other pages in the navigation journey to make sure that people are getting everything that they need from your website. And that kind of holistic writing process is different than really anything else that I've ever encountered. So websites are they're very challenging to write. A lot of copywriters are very challenged by the process of writing a big website. So this is something that you have struggled with. There's a reason for that. It's unique, and it's very specific, and it's very hard to do well. Which is my second point. They're very hard to do well. Finally, no amount of UI UX design can overcome poor content planning. If your website is not saying the things that it should say in the order that people are expecting to find it, it doesn't matter how well designed your website is, how well placed the buttons are, your website likely still won't be terribly effective at getting people to do the things that you want them to do or learn the things that you want them to learn. So UI UX design, critical, extremely important to the success of your website, but it cannot overcome shortcutting in the planning stages or some of the other pieces of your website. So before I move on, some background about me. I've worked in marketing for about 15 years. The first 10 of those years, I was a copywriter. That is why most of my slides today are going to be very text heavy, not so much photos. The last few years, I've served as a creative director at a small local marketing agency called Luminous. You'll see a table for us in the other room. It's filled with stuff. Come visit us. We have giveaways. Please don't steal our t-shirts. There is a specific giveaway for those. You can enter it by scanning the QR code. Not a lot of people have entered so far, so you've got a pretty good shot at getting a t-shirt or a mug if you want one. Just please don't steal them from us. And in my career, I have written or overseen probably 100 websites. That is a stab in the dark. That's a kind of a very rough estimate of 10 or more a year for the duration of my career. I've always worked on the marketing agency side. So that's my perspective, is doing websites on behalf of clients. I've tried my very best to make this presentation general in terms of the language that I'm using so that it's not strictly from that perspective, but just know that if you are not, if you're not creating websites on behalf of outside organizations or outside companies, all of this still applies, your jobs still matter, what you're doing is very important, but my perspective is on the agency side, so if you see that slip through, I apologize. That's been my whole career. Some background about websites. No one knows how to write a website. We've talked about this a little bit already. They're very hard to do. They're very hard to do well. I've seen a lot of copywriters who still walk in feeling like, you know, they've done websites in the past, and then when I challenge them on it a little bit, I discover that their website writing process actually isn't very intentional at all. No one knows how to do them. And everyone wants to skip to the fun parts. Fun parts, as defined for this presentation: copywriting, design, build, the pieces where you actually get to see something tangible at the end of it that looks really cool and reads well. Those are the parts that feel the most rewarding, but to get there and to make sure that those pieces are doing what they need to do, you have to go through the less fun parts, which are all of the content planning pieces that we're going to walk through. So, content planning is a 3-step process. The first 2 we're going to go through really quickly. The first one is research. How can you create a content plan if you don't understand the full scope of what it is that you need to communicate on your website? So the research piece can look a little bit different depending on who you are in the process and who you're working with in the process. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today. I could. I would love to talk about this at another time, but for today's purposes, trying to talk too much about the research piece is just a little bit off topic, but I'm happy to answer questions about this later if anyone wants to talk more about it. So, step 1 for the research: get the decision makers or information havers into a room and mine them for information. From my perspective, this means getting people from my client's organization in a room with me, on a Zoom with me, and I run through a very long list of questions, trying to make sure that I'm learning everything that I can about their organization, what they do, who they do it for, how it works, what sets them apart. If you are internal, it might be just other people from your organization that have this information, have a different perspective. Just get them all together, force them to do it, and just kind of make sure that you are getting all the right pieces of information. If you are creating a website that's only for yourself, if you are the only person involved, you may be able to skip this step. It still might be worth, kind of coming up with a list of questions and making sure that you can answer them all. Or if anyone else is involved, if you have a friend or a partner who knows what you're doing and understands the business, have them run through it with you so that you're getting a slightly varied perspective. On the agency side, one of the things we always say is the benefit of an outside perspective is almost as valuable as the actual work that we're contributing. So try to get a few different people involved in this process to make sure you're getting those varied opinions, getting everything that you need. And then just make sure that those questions are varied. Make sure you're asking about the audience, what motivates them, what's worked in the past, what messaging does your sales team use that tends to resonate? What do you actually want them to do? Do you want them filling out a form on your website? Do you want them calling? Do you want them to buy something? Make sure you can answer those questions, in addition to questions about services, products, strengths, differentiators, all of that. So gather a lot of information as your very first step to any website. My final note on research, like I said, I would love to spend more time on this, but I can't today. The secret to research is learning how to ask the right questions. If you don't know how to ask the right questions, ask a lot of questions. Just keep asking questions until you feel like you have more information than you could possibly know what to do with at the end of this process. If there's something that you only 80% understand, keep asking questions until that's closer to 100%. When it's time to sit down and write it, if you only partially understand something, it will show in your website content. So keep asking questions and try to get all the information you need. Please don't skip this step. It's really important. Step number 2 is site mapping. This is another one I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. And fortunately, if you were here for the 9 o'clock session with Shanta, she covered a lot of this. So she did me a huge favor because now I don't have to feel guilty about not going into a lot of detail on how to do this. Again, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them afterwards or talk you through them. Shanta is also a fantastic resource for this particular piece. But in general, planning out your website architecture is a very important piece of kind of your content planning equation. Sorry, that did something weird. This is going to be the good part of the video. We'll get there. Okay, quick review for anyone who came in late.
And if you're a speed reader.
Okay, we're really close. Okay. So I lost the heading on this slide. That's what threw me off. But if you want your website to be a useful, highly converter tool for your business, content mapping is kind of the most important piece of here. Content planning is the painstaking process of planning out, page by page, section by section, exactly what it is that you want to say on your website. So leading in with the research and the site mapping is a great way to get you there. Once you have the site map all planned out, everything Shanta was talking about earlier in terms of figuring out what pages you need, figuring out what belongs in posts or news section versus more static content that's going to live there permanently until you take it down. Having a really good understanding of your site map is the first step. So once you have your site map, then you go through page by page and you figure out exactly what it is that you want to put on each of those pages. So that's kind of what this general content planning phase is. Like most things, if you try to just go off the cuff, you'll get maybe 70% of it. That 30% that ends up getting left off due to lack of planning is often the stuff that your audience is going to be looking for that may end up making your website just a lot less effective than it should be or could be. And content planning also includes more than just the words. So things like, what graphics do you need? Do you need photo galleries? Are there infographics that you should have in there? Where do the buttons go? What are the CTAs? Some of that overlaps with the UI UX design. If you have a UI UX designer or a website designer, you should be working in collaboration with them on all of those things. But if you are doing the content planning, you should be thinking about all of the content on the page, not just the words. Oh, there we go. Okay, so third goal, give you actual concrete steps of how to do this. So, pick a starting page. I highly recommend you don't start with the homepage. Homepages, in my experience, can be two different directions. You can go with a really high concept homepage. Those are very rare. I don't recommend those unless you have a much larger campaign that you're building your website around. Or your homepage is kind of a hub to the rest of the website. By planning out all the other pages, the homepage actually will come together very easily at the end. If you try to start with it, you are asking yourself to make a ton of major decisions about the website content before you've really planned out what each page looks like. So Pick a page to start that you think is going to be a core page for your audience. But like I said, I recommend not starting with the home page. I never do. The home page is almost always the last page that I map out on websites. Map out every section. Every single section of every page should be included in your content plan. Even if it's repeated content from other pages. If you have the same CTA bar on every page, map it out on every page that you want to have it and figure out where you want it on the page. Don't skip steps here. Make sure every single piece of content that you think you want gets kind of mapped out on the page that you want it. And then you're just going to repeat this for every page that you go through. I know this part probably still feels a little bit abstract. I'll get into a few more details as we move on, but those are the general principles. Do it for every page and be really diligent about mapping out every section. Even if it feels like it's overkill, even if you think, oh, I'm going to remember that we definitely need to have a contact form at the bottom of this page or a link to the contact form at the bottom of the page, put it in there anyways. You may or may not remember, and whoever this goes to build the website also may or may not know or remember that that's something that you intended to have there. So be diligent, be really detail oriented, give your future self a break, and do yourself the favor of just writing it all down. All right, so some of the ways that you're going to approach figuring out what goes on every page. This is a list of questions. This is not an exhaustive list of questions by any means. So you can tackle this whatever way feels like it's going to be best suited to what you do, what's going on your website, and who your audience is. So the questions are going to vary. You know, if your website is more product-based, if it's more service-based, if it's more informational, if it's e-commerce, these questions are going to shift a little bit, and the audience that you are writing to is also going to shift a little bit. So don't take this as these are the only questions that you should be asking, or that these are definitely all the right questions to be asking. This is a list to kind of get your brain moving in the right direction about how you should go about content planning and figuring out what information needs to go on every page and in what order. So start with the banner. You know, what needs to go at the top of the page? Probably some sort of headline. Is it a descriptive headline? Is it a more straightforward keyword, SEO-driven headline? Does it deserve a subhead? Does it need body copy to go with it? Is it going to be a large photo banner, a video banner? Start thinking about those things for every page. You probably don't want huge video banners on every page of your website, but maybe on key pages you do. So think about, at a very basic level, someone lands on the page, the very first thing they see, what does that need to be? Are you still trying to draw them in, or are they drawn in and you can kind of get right to the point? That question, the way that you answer it is going to vary from page to page, and again, it's also going to vary depending on what your website is for and what you want people to do when they're there. Do you need an overview on that page? Are you going to be getting into more information as you keep moving down? Do you need to kind of summarize, okay, this is in general what this service does, and then you get into the specifics of it below that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it's a question to think about. From the user side, once someone has landed on this page, what are the questions that they are going to have? There is something that brought them there. There is a reason that they've decided to visit this page of your website. What are the questions that they're going to be asking when they're there? Are they going to be asking why they should choose your company for this specific service? Are they maybe still asking what services are even offered? Does this company offer everything that I'm looking for? They might be looking for pricing. They might be looking for proof that you've done this successfully before. Hard for me to predict for a very general audience like this exactly what people will be looking for, but that is a really critical question to be asking yourself, both for the whole website, and that's kind of the site mapping piece of it. The content mapping piece is page by page. When someone lands here, what is the information that they're looking to walk away with? Once you know what information you need to have, this is where you get into the nitty-gritty a little bit. You start thinking about the format. So this is definitely more the copywriter in me that does this piece. You may be able to leave it out or hand it off to whoever will be writing the website, but I'm already starting to think about, is this a paragraph of text? Is this a bulleted list? Is this maybe better served with a graphic or an infographic of some sort? Is it both a paragraph and a bulleted list? Is it a 3-column layout that's kind of highlighting different pieces of information? Does it need to have links included? Do you want someone to visit another page afterwards? So all of those little layout things, think about that again, not just about the website as a whole, section by section. As you move through each page, think about what layout might best serve this information. Variety is key. We've all been on websites where every page is a 500-word essay, and you don't read them. No one does. You move right past them. It's too much. People don't like to read. As a copywriter, it breaks my heart every day, but people don't want to read. People don't want to read long essays on websites. So be as creative as you can to figure out engaging ways that you can present information that's not always a paragraph of prose, with an understanding that if that's what you do, people aren't going to read it, so they'll be missing out on that information. There are exceptions to this, of course, depending on how specialized what you do is, how motivated people are when they're on that page, but general rule, people don't want to read more than 1 or 2 sentences at a time in any given section. You should be thinking about things like, what do you want them to do next? Are they taking an action next? Are they visiting another page? Are they going to be looking for more information on something? If you're giving them a bunch of choices, here's a list of all of the products that we offer. Chances are they're going to want to visit a product page next, so make sure that you have links to product pages. Be creative about how those get broken down. So if you have 30 products, you may not want to link to 30 different product pages from somewhere else. Can you categorize them in some way so that people can take that next logical step and get closer without you having to overwhelm them with information and choices before they even really understand what's available to them. So think through kind of what their next step is going to be and what they might be expecting their next step to be, or what questions they may still have to make sure that they can make the right choice about where they should go next. Let's see, other questions that I have on here. What information is going to help them actually make a decision? If they're looking to buy something, if you want them to contact you, if you want them to sign up for a free demo, what information is really going to drive that home? What's that one thing that you can say to them that's going to motivate them to actually take action? Separate that piece out, don't bury it. Make it part of the CTA, make it a big headline somewhere. Be strategic about where that is placed on the page. You don't always want it to be dead last at the bottom of the page. You also may not want it to be first. You may want them to have a little bit more information before they go ahead and take that next piece. That could help, make sure that you're doing things like qualifying your leads, qualifying who is coming through your website, who's reaching out to you. You want to make sure that they have enough information to be confident that you are at least a reasonable choice for them. They're not wasting their time, they're not wasting your time by reaching out because they just didn't have enough information to know that you don't do what they're looking for. And then finally, think about, is this information, or is this section informational, or is it transactional? Are they looking to do something, or are they looking to learn something? The way that you present information should shift a little bit based on those goals. If you want them to do something, that's where more of the UI UX stuff comes in. You want to make sure their eyes are drawn to those sections. You want to make sure that if you have buttons there or links, that they're easy to find, that it's very clear where they'll be going if they click on it. If it's more informational, this is where you can Maybe include a little bit more text, knowing some people are going to skip it, but it's available to them if they're still looking to be educated on whatever topic this is on your website. So, not an exhaustive list. There's plenty of other questions you can and should be asking yourself as part of this process, but this is really the painstaking part that you want to go through on every single page on your website. The exception is if you are doing something like creating a unique product page and you have 30 products, you do not need to do this for every unique product. You should be able to standardize this information to a degree. So whether it's all 30 products can have exactly the same set of information listed out, or if you need to break them into categories. This category of product has this information. This category has a lot of the same information, but a few different pieces. So pages where the outcome is equivalent, you can do this once and apply it across all of those pages. That's the only exception. Otherwise, do it for every page. Do it for your About Us page. Do it for your contact page. Make sure you're thinking it through. If you've taken it this far, don't cut corners here. Make sure that, again, you're doing yourself, your future self, and anyone that you are collaborating with on the end stages of this website, do all of those people the favor of being diligent in this step. I promise it will make it easier. So, a couple hot tips on content planning. Do not confuse this with copywriting. People in this room, I don't know how many of you would be doing the copywriting yourself, if you would be having other people do it. Regardless, the answer is the same. Content planning and copywriting are two different steps. We'll get into copywriting in a minute. But content planning is not writing the headlines. It's not writing out the information. It is breaking down, I want a descriptive headline here. I need an overview that talks about this value prop that we've identified as something the audience is going to care about. You do not need to write those things right now. You just need to make decisions about what information goes on the page. It's a little bit of a nuanced difference. It's a very important difference. Do not get into the weeds with copywriting, because one of the things that can happen is you might discover some wish list information. So what you learned in your research phase, in your discovery phase, and what information you ultimately decide a visitor is going to be looking for on any given page, it may not be 100% overlap. You may discover that actually you do wish that you had a little bit more information on the different ways that a product is used that you didn't get in your discovery phase, in your research phase. That's fine. That's a great way to improve a website beyond what you may have expected, or beyond what your client or supervisor may have expected. Identifying those needs is literally why we do this step. So if you try to dive right into copywriting, your brain is going to go to, what do I already know? What information do I have that I can write about? And that's not what we want in this phase. So content planning is idealistic. It's thinking, if I can deliver a perfect set of information to the visitor, what would that look like? The next phase after this, go out and get that information, do what you can to make it happen, but don't limit yourself to what you already know, because you might be leaving out really critical pieces of information that are very easy to get if you just ask the right question to the right person, and you may not have known those things when you were doing your research phase, or they may have slipped through the cracks. So identifying what information you don't have that belongs on the website is a great outcome of this content planning process. When I do this in a Google Doc or a Google Sheet. It doesn't have to be fancy. I use kind of an outline numbering system if I'm doing it in a document. So parent level pages are 1.0, subpages are 1.1, and it kind of keeps going down from there. 1.1.1 if you're going 2 layers deep. Do it however you want, as long as it makes sense to you, as long as it makes sense to the people it needs to make sense to. Don't overthink the formatting. Just do it if, in our case, I'm often presenting this to a client. We do it in a wireframe format. So Then we're kind of combining a couple different pieces of this. Again, wireframe and design are two separate phases. Wireframe, if anyone's not familiar, tends to be grayscale. You're not actually designing out any of the sections, you are just laying out in a slightly more visual format the information that someone should expect to find, and kind of that loose format that you worked through. Is it a paragraph? Is it a bulleted list? Where do we want to have, potentially have photos included here? I'm going to show you an example of that in just a second. And my final step, or my final hot tip, is to collaborate with your designer here if you can. My designer is in this room. I think if you ask him, he will agree that this makes his job a lot easier. He does not have to design abstractly. He does not have to design imagining what content might go on a page. He can then design long before copy's written, knowing exactly what pieces of information he needs to account for in his design. Makes it a lot easier, and if you collaborate with a designer in this phase, ultimately you're making it easier on everyone when you have to put all these pieces together. So if you have the option, I highly recommend collaborating here. If you don't, that's okay. This step still kind of works on its own, and it's easy to hand off to whoever will be designing the site, whether that's you or someone else a little bit later in the process. Okay, we already went through this. Wow. Okay, let's see how many times I put this slide in here. Here we go. Okay, I know this is going to be really hard for you guys to see, but this is an example of that wireframe that I talked about. So we'll try to make sure that this presentation is accessible afterwards, so that if you want to take a closer look at this, you can. But when you take a look at this, what you're going to see is, this is a wireframe, so it's all grayscale. One of the reasons it's probably a little bit tough for you guys to see. It has filler copy, so you'll notice things like it says, locations headline. This is not copywriting. That would never be the headline on a real website. It is indicating to myself, to the designer, to whoever else is working on this, that there will be a headline there, and it will be introducing all of the different locations that are part of this organization. Even the list items, they're generalized. In this case, it says item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. All that is doing is indicating that this information, whenever I narrow down exactly what it will be, is going to be in a list format. That way your designer can figure out how to design around that topic in a list format. You'll see spots that are just gray boxes that are marked photo. A photo would be a great asset there. A photo that complements the information that's next to it is going to be kind of what we're looking to achieve there. Exactly what that looks like, we don't know yet. That's the design phase. So when you go through this, you'll kind of see this is all filler content. It's descriptive, but none of it's real. Almost nothing that you see in this wireframe is final content the way that you would see it on a live website. This step, like I said, we do this at Luminous, we do this for client presentations because the other way is very abstract. If you can think that way, great. If you can't, being able to visualize it like this is a great way to make sure that you've thought it through, is a great way to kind of look at it a little bit more holistically. Often, when I see things in wireframe, I go back through and I discover things that, oh, I actually think we need this information here. I didn't realize it before, but seeing it all laid out, I'm missing this piece. Let's go ahead and add this in. So most people are visual learners, at least to some degree. Putting it in this kind of format is a great way to kind of cheat the system in your brain and make sure that you've kind of done everything that you wanted to do in this in this content planning and mapping process. So let's see. What comes next? For for me, working on the client side, you get approval on the content map. If you're internal, if you're doing this for yourself, review it, make sure, like I was just saying, make sure everything that you think belongs in there is represented in there. If it's internal and you need to show it to an internal team of people, that wireframe, again, can be a really great tool. It doesn't take a lot of design skills to put those together. You could probably do it in Microsoft Word if you really wanted to. It's all grayscale, it's just boxes and descriptive filler lorem ipsum text where it fits. For an internal team, walking them through it, making sure everyone agrees, yes, you have all the right pieces of information in there, we haven't left anything out, it feels like it's in the right order, these navigation journeys kind of make sense. Whatever you think the navigation journey is going to be on your website, you're probably right 5 to 10% of the time. Anytime we look at analytics on any of our websites, the way that people move through them is always different than what we expected. There's a million ways for people to do it. You want to make sure you're accounting for as much of that as you can in your site mapping and in your content mapping. So interlinking can be a really important piece of this content mapping step to make sure people always have a next place that they can go. You don't want them hitting any dead ends on your website. So get approval on that content map. Make sure that you've kind of thought through a variety of different user navigation journeys, because they're probably not going to be the same one that you would take if you visited the website yourself. And then guess what? Your designer can design the whole site now. It's going to be really fast. They have all the pieces that they need. You've done a lot of the legwork for this website so that you can just hand them that document, that wireframe, whatever it is. If you've collaborated with them along the way, they'll already be familiar with this. You've gotten approval on it, hand it off to them. The website can be designed way faster now than if they were shooting blind and designing for mystery content on any given page. Copywriting is also really easy now. You've done all the hard work, whether it's for yourself. When I do this and then I'm also doing the copywriting, I've just handed myself the roadmap to write this whole website. If it goes to someone else, you're handing them the roadmap to write the whole website. They know what headlines they need, where they need a subhead, where they need a paragraph. When I'm being really diligent, I'll say things like, you need 2 to 3 sentences here describing this value proposition. So easy. If someone hands you that, you know exactly what to write. It still takes time. You still need to be very intentional about it, but you've eliminated all of the really, really hard pieces of website content writing where you have to figure out what goes on every page and how it interacts with all the other pieces. You've done all that legwork. Copywriting now is just execution. And from here, any copywriter or anyone, really anyone who wants to take on the project can take this roadmap and run with it. And then if you need to go back and update the sitemap, make sure you kind of go ahead and do that too. If you've documented a sitemap in the past, whether you've used Shanta's Post-it system and then documented it elsewhere, you may discover in the process of content planning and content mapping that you need more pages than you anticipated. That's fine. Again, congratulations. You've made a better website by identifying some of those needs. But make sure that you kind of update wherever you have the sitemap documented so that what is documented there reflects what you're actually expecting to see on this final website. All right. Sorry about all the repeat slides in here. Okay, that's it. So if you were expecting more from this presentation, please come talk to me afterwards and I will see if I can answer more questions. This is not a science. It is extremely dependent on the topic of your website, who your audience is, what you want them to do when they're there. If you have specific questions about your specific website, I would be happy to help talk through them with you, but in general, you kind of need to have an understanding of who your audience is, and think through how your audience is going to be moving through your website and the information they're going to be looking for. The point here is to do the legwork, to take the time to think all of that through, to plan it out, to document it. What that looks like can vary. This is the process I use. A different one might work for you, but the most important thing that I want to impart to you today is how important content planning is for your website. You will make a better website if you go through some sort of content planning process. If you try to wing it, you will leave information out. I see it happen all the time. Go through the process, do yourself a favor, do your client a favor, do your website visitor the favor of kind of mapping out the information that they're going to be looking for so that they get it when they're on your website. And if you're not sure how to do it, just do it. Believe in yourself. So I think we have a few minutes. Does anyone have any immediate questions for me? Things I didn't talk about enough? Something I said that contradicts what you think you know? Additional details? Yep.
In these days, what's the, for an individual wanting to put up a website, what's the estimate on the cost of having that help?
Ooh, that is a question I don't think I can answer for you. That is not my side of the business. So hiring an agency, it's going to vary. I can say we price our websites a lot just based on the complexity of the website, how you like it built. If you want a custom site versus something that can be done a little bit more quickly in a theme, the pricing changes pretty dramatically. So it definitely depends on your needs. You could get it for, a whole website all in, a couple $1,000. If you're just looking for a consultant for pieces of this, you can probably do it for less if you can find someone who will do it hourly. Doesn't have to be a ton of hourly work. 6 to 10 hours would probably do it all in if they, have a process and can walk you through it and you're willing to do some of the homework on your own. And then it's just whatever those freelance rates are going to be. So tough question to answer. Maybe that helps. Anyone else? I'm going to take that to mean that I have already answered all of your questions, and there's just absolutely nothing left that someone doesn't know, and you're all super prepared to go out and make really, really great, well-planned websites now. So with that, I believe it's lunchtime, so you can all head out and enjoy your lunch.